Hello, friends. Okay, I'm still very much getting used to doing this YouTube live instead of doing things in the community. So I apologize that I'm a little late because I forgot I needed to set up the YouTube live. So actually, really quickly, I need to go in and share the appropriate link for this morning. This would be good from there. Okay, awesome. So this morning we are talking about filtering and sorting and using that in Notion to reduce overwhelm. Now, this might seem like the most basic topic to talk about in Notion, but I really don't think it is because I think what I see so many people do in Notion and experience in Notion is they experience overwhelm because they are constantly feeling like everything is in their face in Notion. If that is you, please drop in the chat that that is you and that is something you experience because that is absolutely something I see happen all the time. It's filters are how you turn, that overwhelm of, oh my God, like everything is in my face all the time, every single time I open my Notion system into, and I only see what matters right now. And actually, before we get into some of the tips and like the use cases and the screen sharing parts of this, I actually think a really important place to start with this is to ask yourself a few questions about how you work in Notion, and if you're new to Notion and you don't necessarily have this set up yet, just ask yourself how you work in general. Do you feel calmer when you can see everything at once or when you only see what is relevant right now? Like, are you somebody who likes to see the big picture all the time when you go into your system, or do you like to see what is only relevant in this moment? So that's one question. Do you prefer for your work to be highly compartmentalized, very clear buckets, very clear boundaries? Or do you like more flexibility and a more interconnected setup? That's also really helpful for us to know. Do you open Notion and do you want a command center view or do you want a single next step view? Do you trust yourself to ignore non-urgent items or do you need your system to hide them for you? And I think this is really important, particularly for my neurodivergent people to think about. I know for me, there are instances and there are times when the big picture is actually incredibly helpful when I'm planning or when I'm strategizing. But when I'm into like the nuts and bolts, nitty gritty, like day to day work, usually actually it's not. That command center, high level, big picture view is not helpful to me in those instances. So for me, it's a little context dependent, is what I'm getting at. But the reason I think this is a topic that is worth talking about, even if it seems so basic, is most people don't have a Notion problem. They have a visibility problem. Your databases are fine. Your dashboard, even that you have, might be fine. But the issue is that you're staring at too much information at once. And a filter is a decision you make once, so future you does not have to redecide every single time of what's important for you to view. So filters, in my opinion, do three very important jobs. They reduce cognitive load by hiding things that are maybe not actionable, not important right now. And yes, sometimes we do need to clearly make that decision of, hey, this is not important right now. So they do that for us. They also prevent doom scrolling inside of your workspace. That's actually something I'm very cognizant of, is some of my pages inside of my workspace have gotten very long and I have to scroll a ton to see all of the information on them. They just actually released a new Notion update, which I'm really excited about. That should help fix that. But they've been rolling out Notion updates like crazy recently. So sometimes we just need to slowly add them into our Notion workflow instead of add them all at once. And then the third thing they do is they let one database potentially serve multiple roles without you feeling like you need to duplicate anything. Okay. So there are many different types of filters that we can set up inside of Notion. And I think what I actually want to go ahead and start with in this is I want to just set up some basics of how you can set up filters, because ultimately you can filter on legit anything that you have a database property for. Anything that you have created a database property for, you can ultimately set up a filter for. But let me go ahead and we'll just use my quick capture page for this actually. And let's go ahead and demonstrate some of how these filters work, excuse me. So let me share my screen. Window. Okay, so we're on my quick capture page here right now. And the thing you want to look for, and I will say it's a little bit harder to see everything in a situation like what we've got going on up here for my task inbox, which actually I need to start you. I started working on this a little bit before 9:30. But you can't really see what you need to see in these kind of more condensed views. But notice as your database gets larger, you can start to see all of these different icons along the top. Now, if you don't have those icons, you might have minimized them. So then you just want to click that little button to expand it. The one you want is the one that looks like a little cone. Okay. That is your filter. And basically, how this filter works is for, like I said before, any property you have inside of your Notion system, you can filter by that property. So, for example, this is my tackle list. This is where I just keep track of like ideas, really. And how I use this tackle list is I treat it like an inbox. So I only want it to display the things that were added, so that were created on this day. I can still access the entire tackle list when I actually go into the tackle list page here, so I can see everything. But on my quick capture page, because I very much use this as like an inbox, I only want to see what was added today. And actually, that's the case for a lot of places inside of my quick capture page. It's the same for any new connections that I've made. This is going to be people who were added today. It is same for any new clients or leads that I connected with. These are only displaying people that were added in the past 2 days for this one. But I use that added property, or in Notion, the actual property name is the created time. And sometimes I will just go ahead and I call it added. So this guy right here, the created time, that is the property I use a lot for like an inbox feature. So anything you have a property for, you can filter by. So for example, this you could filter by created time. I could filter by what type of content it is, whether or not it has media, so on and so forth. You can filter by literally anything, and you just see what filters are being applied by clicking this little cone guy. You can also see what filters are applied and adjust those filters by going into the settings. So that's always just this little horizontal guy right next to the new button, and then down to filter. And then you can add your filters from here. So if basically what I would do if I were you, let me actually go back to my main view here. Let me stop my share. If I were you, what I would recommend doing is basically say to yourself, if it feels chaotic, it's usually missing a filter. That is what I would say for you. And like, honestly, the most common filter to apply, since so many of us are doing task management, so many of us are doing to-do lists. I mean, I believe in having a master to-do list. Dump freaking everything you need to remember into one to-do list. But here's a caveat. I never, ever, ever think you should be actually working day to day off of your master to-do list, because usually what happens is usually we get overwhelmed. Usually we like feel bad about how much we've been able to get done because there's just still so much on the master to-do list that is staring us in the face. So like a very, very simple, straightforward use case. Let's go ahead and go over to my productivity hub. Beautiful. A very, very, very simple to do our use case would be to filter by things that are due. And I do 2 different due dates. I do a DUE due date and a DO due date. Is maybe I only want to see the things that are due that day. And I have too many because I need to audit my to-do list right now. But like now this is a vastly less overwhelming to-do list. Let's actually go over to my home tab. Woo. This is a vastly less overwhelming to-do list to look at than this to-do list. And actually, I don't need to follow up with her because she just filled out all of her stuff this morning. So that is like a great way to filter, is if you only want to see the things that are due today. Let me actually show you what this would look like in real time if I was staring at all of my to-dos, all to-dos versus today's to-dos. And again, don't judge me because I'm very aware that I need to audit my to-do list. So let's go in here and let's delete all of these filters. This is actually the advanced filters. And what this allows you to do is like conditional things. Like if you wanted to filter by multiple things simultaneously, or okay, it has to have a due date or a DUE due date, that's the advanced filter. We're just going to ignore this for now, just to make it so that it's not, too overwhelming and confusing. Okay, yeah, we do still have delete. Okay, so what's happening here is this is showing literally everything that's in my task list right now. And there's literally so many, you can't even see all of them, but you can see all of these ones at the top are ones that are already complete. So a very, very basic thing that a lot of people are going to want to do with their to-do list, for example, is they are going to want to filter where you can either use a status property or maybe you do a checkbox property. I do not want this to show anything that is completed. Okay, so now it's only going to show me things that are not completed. Well, one thing that I also personally like to do is see how I've got a bunch of these things here that are things that I want to do eventually, but they're just like very much not right now things. I use these other status properties, which you might have seen when I went into my status, that I call waiting for, snoozed, someday maybe, or incubator. So they're still in my to-do list, but they're not things that I am actually like to doing right now. Partnership workflow design. I have no idea what this is. Oh, I do know what that is. I take it all back. Okay, so now it's even less. So now this is only showing me the things in my system that have a status that is either to do or in progress. But you can see still a lot of shit because this is still not filtered by date. So first thing that I would do when I'm setting up anybody's task and to-do list is I filter by status because we want things to go away when their status is complete or any of these other things. And what I will also go ahead and do is I filter by a due date. And I always use start date is on or before today. That tends to be what I personally do for my to-do list, because if something is a to-do that's for next week or next month or in June, for God's sakes, I do not care. I do not want to see that right now. These are for the things that are priorities for me to work on right now. That is how I operate. And yes, doing this would require that you actually utilize due dates in your system. If you are not somebody who is utilizing due dates, yeah, it's going to be harder to apply this. But even if your due dates are a little bit arbitrary, like they're kind of more up to you. And yes, I do still have taxes on my to-do list. Don't judge me. I'm a procrastinator when it comes to that. But even if your due dates have an arbitrary due date to them, it might still be very, very helpful to have those due dates in play. Okay, I have a lot of things that I need to audit and clean up about my to-dos. But now even then, I've gotten rid of all of this. I'm showing the stuff that is due on before today. This is still a really overwhelming to-do list. And I know myself, I tend to add a lot of things to my to-do list that are actually not important to-dos. So what I personally do is I then also add a filter that is only showing me things that have a priority designation of main priority. And now look, I have got a to-do list that looks infinitely less overwhelming than the original to-do list did. Part of the reason I also use these tiles, this gallery view, is because that is also making something that is less overwhelming for me. Okay. So I've already showed you two different use cases in this. I've showed you a sort of like inbox use case. And with an inbox, I tend to do a lot of filtered by when it was added. Like I showed you before, if it was added today, then that means it's going to disappear tomorrow. It's still going to stay in the system, but it's going to disappear from my board. So every single day, I start with a blank slate to-do list. And then we've also seen the sort of like daily today, oops, not here, the daily today views. I'm trying to close this tab of how you could set up to-do lists. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this view because I already have my to-do list view over here. Let's see, what could be another view that we do? Like, let's go ahead and maybe look at my weekly reviews, which actually I can now say that this week is in progress. So these are my weekly review pages. And this is another place that I am using filters. So I'm using filters to only be able to see, oh, maybe this isn't a good example. Let's do April. I'm using filters here to only show the goals and the goals and the projects that are associated with April, because I do not care about goals and projects that are not associated with April. And actually, even here, you can see this says active projects. That is because I'm only showing the projects that are in progress. We're not showing the ones that aren't started. We're not showing the ones that are completed. I don't care about those. I don't want to see those. So those are some other filterings that I can do. Is a project view is maybe you only look at active projects, or you only look at the projects that are, or the goals that are associated with that particular month. That is another good way to do it. Another thing that I will do a lot, and you can actually see a lot of this in my content ideas database. Now, granted, I only really work off of my content ideas database when I am planning, but like you can see, I've got various different views here, and all of these different views I utilize for different things. So here I've got all ideas. I might only use this view when I'm looking for a particular topic idea. So maybe I was like, oh, I want to repost this like balance is bullshit thing. Cool. I can use the search filter on all of my ideas to find specifically when I've got that in here. I can obviously sort them in different ways. I could do by pillar, but that's not necessarily filtering. Another thing that I will do is I will look at ideas that were created this week. So I have a created this week view. So if I recently created an idea that I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I put that on my content calendar, I will go to the created this week. And then I use this one a lot, social media graphics. Now, what I will actually often do with this is I will either sort like this. So I've sorted by media descending. This is showing me all of the things that already have media associated with them at the top. Or I will set a filter that says media is not empty. And what I'm doing in this view is I am looking for the pieces of content that are already saved in my content system that I already have media for it. Because if I already have media for it, this is going to be something that is going to be really, really easy for me to post. So like this already has a graphic associated with it. Same with this. This has something that I have designated that it's playing in another tab right now. I can repurpose because I've downloaded it from Snap Insta or Snap Save. So that is another way I will leverage filters is I will use filters to help me find something like a quick piece of social media content that I can repurpose. So you can see it is something that is helpful and applicable when you are like in a view, when you are actually trying to take action and get things done, but it can also be helpful when you're planning or when you're searching to leverage those filters depending upon what you might be searching for. I feel like this is like a sky's the limit situation in terms of potential ways you can utilize filters. But again, I think the thing to remember is if the view feels chaotic, it may be because you're just trying to look at too much at once. And you've got to ask yourself those few things that we talked about before. If it feels chaotic, I already probably know the answer to the first question. Do you feel calmer when you see everything at once or when you only see what is relevant? If things feel chaotic, you're probably somebody who needs to not see everything at once. You need to see only what's relevant in that instance. If do you prefer for your work to be highly compartmentalized or do you like things to be more flexible and interconnected? That might be situational, but I think if you're somebody who feels overwhelmed very quickly when you're looking at a lot of things in your Notion space, you're probably somebody who needs things to be more compartmentalized. If you think you want a command center, but every single time you open up that command center dashboard, you are finding that you are getting overwhelmed by the amount of information you're seeing, okay, then you might be more of a single next step person. And even that being said, the like last thing I will kind of add in regard to this, maybe you are somebody who likes dashboards, but I actually think this is a great example of a dashboard that is really clean. Look at how this is my like start my day dashboard. This is my warm up page. I used to call it my daily check in. I now call it the warm up. This is the page I start with. And I hardly have to scroll to see everything that's on this page, right? And that is because there's a lot of filters happening here. I even have leveraged toggles. So when I'm logging my habits, I don't see all of the habits all the time. I've now got it so that I expand the toggle open. So I only see habits when I'm actually logging the habits. And I personally like that because it makes this page just feel so much cleaner. Okay. And actually, I can mark this as done because I've already worked out today. So that's another thing that we can use is if you've got these kind of trigger pages that you use as like your start of day, or like I also have my cool down page, which is my end of day page. If you've got these pages that you utilize for those habits, but you want to make sure you're not starting your day feeling overwhelmed, or you want to make sure you're not ending your day feeling overwhelmed, leverage filters there too. These brain dump things that I have here, these are filtered to only show the things that were created today and have a status that isn't complete. That is how I leverage these. And it keeps that brain dump nice and clean every single day. So I think that's the big thing to take away here is if you are somebody who is very easily overwhelmed that would be my recommendation. Okay. So before we wrap up, I want to call out some common mistakes that I see a lot of people making when it comes to this sort of a thing in Notion. Building new databases instead of new views. You might have already have all of the information, and actually shout out to Micah. Micah posted a comment this morning that honestly gave me ideas about not constantly creating new databases. Hers was for like how she saves things in her Notion system. And honestly, I think we all probably need a save system like Micah has in my school community. But she basically realized, okay, I don't need to build a new system every single time. I just need to build I just need new views. Okay. So don't always default to building a new database. Sometimes you just need a new view for an existing database. If you're filtering by too many things, that also I think is a common mistake. Sometimes it's better to just hide the work. Actually, I think I'm saying that incorrectly. Sometimes it's better not to hide the work or just have, again, multiple views. Maybe you have a view that's highly filtered and then you have a view next to it that's vastly less filtered, that it's super easy for you to toggle between them. And actually, I'm going to literally demonstrate what that looks like really quickly because I have the perfect example of that in my to-do page. This is like my top of mind to-dos are just the ones I see here. But when I go over to decision priority, this is where I can see all of the potential to-dos that I've got happening here. And so when I'm planning, I go over to this page and I Notion system portfolio, that would be nice. I go over to this page and I kind of rearrange things. So I already forgot to post that. So we're just going to skip it. I kind of already, this is going to be a next priority. Like I go through and I plan on this page so that when I go over to this page, these are the things that I already decided are my highest priorities for the day. So you can see this is the view that I'm mostly seeing. But when I'm done with these or when I realize I need to do some kind of changing of things around, then I go over to decision priority and this is where I plan. So that is another really easy way if you are somebody who, you're going to need to do some planning. That is something that you can do is just create two views for yourself that you can easily toggle between. We don't want to filter by too many things because then work gets hidden that we need to see, but make it easy for yourself to have a planning view and then an action view. And I would say the last mistake I see people make is they don't have some sort of default home view, or they don't have kind of those like you guys have seen me before. I go from my daily check-in page, which I now call my warm-up, into my home page. That's kind of my flow. So I have my home base page that I tend to operate out of every single day, and that makes things really easy. So what I would do if I were you, if one challenge out of today is I would pick one view that is messy. And I would go through and just add one filter on this page. When you are on this page, when you are working on this page, what is your highest priority? And if your highest priority is I need to get shit done and I need to get the things done that I've designated as due today, or I've designated as these are the most important priorities of my day, or whatever it is. Okay, then let's make a view in that page that is all that you can see. So that's kind of my challenge for you today is find one page in your system, the one page you kind of tend to work off of the most. Decide what that page is for and how you utilize that page, and then set up a filter so you're only seeing that thing. Set up a filter so you're only seeing the tasks that are due today. Set up a filter so you're only seeing the highest priority tasks that are due that day. Okay. Because that is usually where overwhelm comes from with Notion. Okay. Filters help you see what matters right now. They reduce that overwhelm by hiding the things that are maybe non-actionable in that moment. And if you need some places to start, time filters are great. I've already given you some examples for how I use those. Time filters are great. Status filters are great. Those are inherently the two filters that I think that people use the most in a Notion system. And then also context filters are great. And like I showed you with my content calendar and content idea system, context filters are one of the biggest things I use when I'm filtering in my content ideas. So that's kind of my quick little demo for you. I know this seems basic, but I do really, really think if you are somebody who finds that you are getting stuck using your Notion system, you are constantly feeling too overwhelmed to actually take action in your Notion system, that would be my biggest recommendation is start playing with filters. Create different filtered views of your databases to cut down on what is actually being forced into your face so that you can actually be productive and actually get the things done that you need to. If you have any questions, need any help getting started in your systems, getting your filters, what filter should I set up if I'm using this view? Drop them in the comments below. I see every comment that comes through on the YouTube channel. Or if you are over in the school community, which you should be if you're watching on YouTube and you're not in the school community, go head over to the school community because that's a lot of what we do in the school community. Okay. So feel free to reach out there, maybe post a screenshot of this is my dashboard. This is what's overwhelming me about it. How can I fix it? And I'll drop in a couple things to nudge you in the right direction. All right. But with that, happy Monday. I hope everybody's having a great start to their Monday, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.